Welcome to another Making the Rounds, and tonight we have James.
Hello.
And Tara.
Hello.
Tara. And we're going to be reviewing / making the rounds of Suicide Squad. And before I pass the baton to one of my co-hosts, I'm going to break down just a brief synopsis here that I found via Google. So figuring they're all expendable, a U.S. intelligence officer decides to assemble a team of dangerous, incarcerated supervillains for a top-secret mission. Now armed with government weapons, Deadshot, Harley Quinn, Captain Boomerang, Killer Croc, and the despicable inmates... What? Okay. And despicable inmates must learn to work together. Dubbed Task Force X, the criminals unite to take back a mysterious and powerful entity, while the diabolical Joker launches an evil agenda for his own.
He did?
Mysterious plots and plans. Yes.
So news to me.
Yeah, same here.
Did I watch the same movie as that?
Yeah, I'm gonna pass the baton over to James and James, and then Tara, and then I'll go last.
All right.
You know, guests first.
I guess
suppose.
so.
Okay, go give us a laydown, friend.
All right. So first off, I found the film was just a mess of like pacing. Pacing is the biggest thing that took me out of the movie. I almost fell asleep near the end. It starts off pretty like over monologue-y, kind of like they're telling each character's like backstory in little segments, and you don't really have a clear understanding of who you're following besides like this lady who wants to make this team. So she's got all of these criminals in jail, and she goes over why she wants them on the team and what they can bring to the table. And they review Harley Quinn. They go through Deadshot. They go through briefly Killer Croc and the fire guy, and they go through these characters. And then there's the witch lady who the visual effects on her were fantastic. And well, for the first part of the movie, and then they go from that into like this sort of like the story part of the movie where they start telling, okay, well, we tried to unleash the witch lady to stop something, and she turned traitor, and all hell's breaking loose. So now we actually need the full team to go in and end it. So you start having the team building characters, and they're all kind of bantering with each other, and then they go, oh hey, guess what, we got some more members for your team. They add in like 3 or 4 more characters. Katana Girl jumps in, and I think that's her name. Her name is Katana, which is fine because comic books, right? But and I can accept funny names because they generally weren't created this year. They were created like 30-40 years ago. And they go in and they go to stop this, and they are sent in with a whole bunch of military folks, and I just felt after that like it was just a lot of shooting and no character development, no real plot. And then suddenly you find out that the lady who's organizing them the whole time has her own secret agenda, and she's doing corrupt things in the background, and she's not actually a good person. She gets kidnapped by the evil witch lady, and she just gets in over her head. She loses control of everything. She gets captured, and when the villains save the day at the end, she's just like, well, you guys are going back to jail. So that's how that is. And what I feel is there's no main character to the story besides Deadshot. So yeah, the lady who's organizing the whole team, she gets over her head. She's sort of corrupt. She loses control of everything. She gets captured, and at the end of the day, when the villains win, she just goes, okay, you're all going back to jail. There was no real story arc for anybody. Everybody sort of sat at, okay, we're villains, and at the end of the day, nothing changed. And it felt like there needed to be a moral compass for everyone. There needed to be somebody to kind of lead this team without actually being like damaged, and they just didn't have that. Or at least if they were damaged, they flip over in the end and realize the error of their ways. But nobody had a character arc. Other than that, Will Smith was very likable. He was the most likable like mass murderer I've ever seen, and he was a little too likable to be a villain for me. They call him a sociopath, but he seems to empathize with so many people in the film, and he threatens people throughout the movie, and each person that he threatens happens to survive the entire film. And I just feel like there's a weird, like, if he's supposed to be like this insane Deadshot, never misses, sniper, mass murderer, he wouldn't have the same empathy. He he lets people survive where you would feel like as a character he would just shoot them because shooting Harley Quinn would give him a shitload of money, and that seems to be his thing, his kill for money. There's also so many other fantastic characters in their little team, like Killer Croc. There's a girl with katanas. There's a guy who shoots fire. And I feel like throughout the whole movie, they just showcased, here's Harley Quinn, and here's Deadshot shooting people. And you don't see all of the fight scenes are Deadshot on a car, shooting people. Deadshot in a room, shooting people. Military guys, shooting people. And there's no... Like, I want to see that Killer Croc rip people apart. I want to see Fire Guy actually unleash more than just once in the film, it felt like. When he did, like, at the end of the film, he created, like, this Aztec god avatar thing, and that was fantastic, except for it lasted about 30 seconds, and it was like, oh, budget's out for Fireman, so kind of cut him out of the rest of the film. It just felt like they had so much potential, and they squandered it. And they just didn't know what they were trying to do with the entire film as an entirety. So, I guess.
Would you recommend this to a friend for like a matinee showing?
If I didn't like my friend, I would definitely recommend. But for those friends I do like, I urge you not to spend your money on it. And probably, if you really have to watch it, wait for it to come out on like Netflix, because it will. So, that was my long-winded rant.
No worries. I mean, great, valid points. I think that there are definitely some points that I'll take to heart as well. Like, I agree with some of them. And Tara, I'm throwing that baton on to you. Let's go.
Oh man, I feel like mine's gonna be significantly shorter. All right.
That's fine.
I feel like this movie suffered a lot from like the uppers meddling, because it felt like they had a good movie there, and then they're like, oh shit, this movie's doing really well, we gotta add some of that in there. Oh, this movie's doing really well. What's really popular right now in video games? Oh, Call of Duty and zombies. Let's just have mindless enemies, and we'll just have, the bad guys will just shoot them down, like bad guys do. And it's like, oh, Guardians of the Galaxy, let's just have a pop music soundtrack. It doesn't matter if the music makes sense in the scenario. We'll just spend all our leftover money on royalties. We don't need more CGI for the Pyro Man. That's fine. It's all good. We'll just have him show up once. It was just a lot of, like, James is right. It had so many cool things. Like, I don't want to dislike DC movies. Like, I had really high hopes for this one, because I was like, maybe this one won't make, like, maybe it'll pull them up. Maybe it'll do well. But, like, it didn't. It suffered the same as a lot of their movies did with editing-wise and the story. And it's like, apparently they started filming it before the script was even finished, which is, like, a huge no-no. Like, why would you... The script is the most important part. Like, if you can't rewrite it multiple times, then it's not going to be consistently... Like, it's not going to be consistent. It's not going to make sense. And it was just, it was a lot of things, like, Joker didn't need to be there at all. He didn't add anything. They could have done some cool stuff. Like, I hate it when the characters in movies communicate via text message. I realize it's a very common thing in, like, normal day life, but in movies it's so boring and anticlimactic. Like, why give Harley Quinn a cell phone to text the Joker? Why not have the guard give her the Joker card? and then she knows he's on his way. Like, that's his thing in a lot of Joker canon, is the card the Joker from a deck of cards. They could have just given her that and then cut back to the Joker whenever they wanted to, like, reference him. They didn't need, like, I'm coming to get you. I'm closer now. I'm gonna rescue you any day now. I'm just down the hallway. And it's just like, what is this? Like, it's so, like, non-threatening. Like, I don't know. It was just, yeah, I kind of ran out of steam there on my Joker rant, but it's just, they had so much, and they just had such a lame story. Like, it was so flat. Like, they, basically what I felt they did is like an improv, like, an improv basis is saying yes and building a story from that. I felt like this almost played out like a gaming group that everybody wants to be the main character. Like, it's like, hey, we should go do this thing. Nah, because that means your specialty is going to be used and mine's not, so we're going to go this way instead. It's like, the story was going, and then it's like, oh, Harley Quinn escapes. But then she comes back and they deactivated her tracker. But then she comes back anyways, and then later on she's worried about her head getting blown off. It's like, but your tracker was deactivated. Why did you come back at all? You could have left. Like, following Harley Quinn through the city could have been an interesting thing. She could have gone to check on Joker to make sure he was alive. Like she could have, I don't know. If I was with somebody and I fell out of a helicopter and lived and their helicopter crashed, I would go check on the helicopter to make sure they're alive. I wouldn't just go back to my captors. It doesn't make any sense. And then it's like, the bar scene was probably one of the more interesting scenes, but I also felt like it derailed the entire thing. It derailed any momentum that they had managed to build up, because they were trying to instill that it's, like, very, very important that they do this thing right now. And then they spend, like, half an hour sitting, and it doesn't matter. It doesn't affect the story whatsoever. It just goes on, and it was very, like, yeah. And then if they had just had the ending scene of the Joker coming to rescue Harley Quinn and nothing else of the Joker in the movie, I would have been happy with that, because then they could have led into more Joker stuff later on. So they basically made very interesting editing choices that I don't necessarily agree with. And that was my rant of that.
All right. Would you recommend it to a friend?
I would go the same route as James. Is don't go see it in theaters. It's not worth it. It's not worth your money. I would just wait it out. I went to see it because I was, like, super curious, and I just had to know, even though the reviews were bad. And yeah, I would suggest don't do that. Don't be like me. Just wait. Wait it out, man. You can do it.
We believe in you. So you guys both made a lot of points that I felt were very valid, and I'm gonna get into my review of Suicide Squad now. Like, it was a weird choice to have a trailer house, like, studio or a production house or editing house, whatever you want to fucking call it, that strictly manufactures trailers to be the main editing team of the movie. That was just a bad choice. A lot of the studio upper-ups, or the high-ups, if you want to call them that, had a lot of influence. You can easily tell there was, like, they were building the bare bones of this movie, and it was looking really good. A lot of the things were very interesting. The trailers didn't look too bad. There was a good foundation for this movie, but it seemed, like you guys said, I'm going to echo some of your guys' points, that they're just like, oh, this was popular from Guardians, this was popular from Deadpool, this was popular from Avengers. Let's try to get that really quick in there and not have its own unique storyline, because, the Suicide Squad storyline's been around for quite a bit. I want to say 10-ish or more years it's been around. And a huge variety of supervillains and awesome, really cool supervillains and bad guys to pick from. I like that they picked from Harley Quinn, Deadshot, and Killer Croc, and, like, I like the cast. Diablo. I had no idea who Diablo was, or Slipknot. I thought those guys were I didn't. Diablo was way cooler, but Slipknot was just stupid. You probably don't. He was the dude who could climb any building or climb anything. Captain Boomerang's really supposed to be cool. He's basically just an Australian Deadshot, but he uses boomerangs instead. You only get to see his boomerang usage twice, and both of the like just really stupid and just crappy. I'm not sure if they needed special effects or if they needed a stuntman that could throw boomerangs properly to hit people. I'm not sure why he didn't use his boomerangs, but he was kind of cowardly in the comics and even in the cartoons, but he still wouldn't flee from a fight necessarily or as long as he had boomerangs and somewhat, back up to assist him, then there wouldn't be a huge deal. I felt like the editing and pacing was off. There was a lot of repeat information. There was a lot of unnecessary information. There was no character development whatsoever except for like 2 or 3 moments. One of the major points in the movie that kind of ruined the momentum of this epic, like we're going to break the witch's machine, was probably the best character development scene, other than maybe the stairwell scene and then the where Deadshot got stopped in an alleyway by Batman. I felt like, I'm not sure if I misheard this or not. I thought Harley Quinn in the stairwell said, I didn't take you for a sociopath or something like that when Will Smith / Deadshot was talking to her about how, I don't know how you can kill so many people and sleep so soundly at night. And then she replied, or at least that's what I thought she said, or that's maybe what I wanted her to say.
I heard just another textbook sociopath, but I might have misheard it too. So
yeah, that's another thing. The music was fantastic. However, it didn't really match any of the pacing or it didn't really fit any of the scenes it was in, except for the Kanye West song in the Deadshot scene where he was shooting up the targets, and it was really cool because he shot the same spot with every single gun that he used, and I thought that was kind of neat. He could have maybe used some reflector plates or done like borrowed somebody's helmet and then like shot through the helmet and like bounce off the bullets. Like Deadshot was supposed to be super like theatrical with some of his shots, and you only get to see that once with his reflector plates that he set up before a mob hit that he did. So overall, is this a great film? No. Is it a terrible movie? No. It's okay. Like it's not the best thing I've ever seen. It's probably on par with BVS. So if you kind of enjoyed the BVS movie and the campy / comic booky stuff, like all the references and nerd stuff, then I would maybe recommend it to you, but I'd probably honestly wait for a matinee or, like James and Tara said, Netflix. Or just don't see it in theater. I mean, it's up to you. All right, so James, there were points that you wanted to make or stuff you wanted to bring up?
There's lots of things. Yeah. That movie, yeah. There are parts in the movie that I loved, and some of the major things for me is the fact that they included Killer Croc, and you got him in his sewer, and he was hilarious. Like the effects on him, he looked great.
The practical effects
it wasn't
were great,
CGI at all, was it? It was just like, I just wish there was more scenes where he took his shirt off because those scales were looking very impressive.
He was wearing like a fuzzy velvet shirt.
I know,
for interesting choice for a costume.
I think he's really an interesting character because he's got that he's half gangster, half Louisiana Cajun kind of accent, and I thought that was really cool because that makes a lot of sense if you think about it. My biggest complaint about Killer Croc is Killer Croc's supposed to be 8 feet tall.
Yeah.
But when you cut away into a wide shot with him in it, he's 5'5" or something like that. He is super short.
He's one of the
and he's not even and he's not even really buff at all. He's got this huge head and the scales look great, and then you look at his arms and his chest and it's he's not really this huge demonstrous demon and monster, I'm just shocked that they couldn't find a behemoth of a stunt guy and just paint him up in makeup. He only had 3 lines anyway, so
they were golden.
He doesn't need to be a great actor. Yeah, they were solid.
And even if they found a giant stunt guy and he delivered wooden lines, I mean, you didn't have to have him say anything either. And it's like, he didn't do anything in the movie anyways, so, like, the look was the most important part
That's
in
the
that
thing.
aspect.
I would have loved to see him do more. I would have loved to see a little bit more character backstory on him. Maybe, like, just the fight scenes were so bland to me because it's just, like, it was strict gun combat. It was Deadshot. Harley Quinn hardly used her hammer. Was the boomerang guy? Yeah, like he did nothing. But
Katana maybe did a few things here and there.
Yeah, but then again, like you could have glorified her using that blade. She was also ham-fisted into the team, which I felt was really like, wait, where the hell? Who are you? Why are you on the team?
She just showed up, talked to her sword, and like glared at people.
Yeah, I also feel like some of her lines were like not subbed right, or the text they were using for the subs just didn't make sense to me. Like, I think the pacing with her subtitlings, I don't know. This is probably super nitpicky, but as someone who watches like a lot of anime, like and even like live action like Japanese stuff, I was like, what the fuck? Like, why does this seem so weird? And when she first got onto the helicopter, that scene was very awkward because it's like, who is she looking at, like, and talking to? Because it, like, couldn't they have gotten a better take? I don't know. This is me being very cynical right now.
No, there's so much to nitpick in the film. I think this is why it got me so like wound up when I saw it. It's that like I couldn't attach myself to anything. Like the Batfleck being in the film was awesome. Like I loved all of his scenes. He did a really good job at being Batman. And like that Deadshot scene was pretty emotional. Like you started to feel like, oh my god, there's depth to his character. But then he tells you later in the film that when you murder like thousands of people, you can't feel love anymore. And it's like, well, you clearly have emotional like connections with people. You love your daughter. You're doing like everything for your daughter. You spared Harley Quinn, which isn't really a love thing, but more of like you certainly like empathize with her or something because.
Or you feel spite just because you killed her, just because the other lady wanted you to. Like you felt some sort of emotion to not kill her. She offered you money and you didn't, which implies an emotional connection. Like,
yeah, because it goes against his character. What has been built up. Like we are shown that he kills for money and he cares very little unless he's getting paid. Killer Croc not being in there, Fire Guy not using fire except for like 3 times in the film.
When he turns into like the giant Aztec thing, it's probably one of the most interesting parts of the movie.
So cool,
right?
I had no idea he could do that.
Right?
I had no idea. I'm like, what?
It was like 2 seconds, and then he turns back and dies, and it's like,
and the
crap?
CGI on the witch, so garbage with her dancing. Why? What is that?
It's like, yeah, okay,
I didn't mind the dancing. I minded the CGI. Yeah.
But the weirdest thing is, it was a CGI version of her. Why couldn't they just get her to do this? Because it's like you've got like her one witch form was awesome, like with the spider webs and the smoke.
I thought that looked
amazing.
So cool.
That form of her was super well done.
And then like it turns into belly dancer.
Her eyes,
mode.
Belly dancer goddess mode was garbage. But like, because it seemed like they used minimalistic CGI for the first form of the witch, or the lesser strong, or the lesser
they used it
powerful
for like the black, which was I thought was really cool. It was like every time she appeared, just black smoke kind of stuff around.
Also, the way she changed with the hand.
Too.
Yeah, she would grab her hand.
Oh my god, it was. I thought we were really like it was really like that was a really cool choice to do, and how like I don't know if like that's like directly from the comics or not. Like sometimes you can pick out frames where they're like, this is a frame like I remember reading and stuff like that. But that was just such a cool moment for me, for not like having no reference of who she is or what she does. It was just a fascinating like visual style choice, and then it goes on to completely butchering it.
My question is, when it transitions from when she's the witchy black demon, and then she transitions into the belly dancer, why does it use the like June Moon doctor's face? Like, what, she goes from being the witch, being like, okay, So she's inside the June Moon's body, and when she transfers, you see her real body. But then when her brother gives her power, she turns into her personality, but coming out of June Moon. And then when she starts to fight, she goes back. And I'm like, why not just use your own body the whole time? Like, why do you have to have the belly dancer doctor lady for a while?
Well, I still feel like June is an essential part to her. Like, I mean, even her first form, you can still kind of see June Moon's character or the Doctor. Like, I don't think the witch inhabits a physical form other than the body that it inhabits. Along with her brother, like, you'll notice that it took on the form
Of that guy.
of the person, the first person. Even though he ate and absorbed a whole bunch of other people, right? You'd think he'd be.
That's true. But like, how did she
so
appear at all in the first place? Then, if she didn't embody a form, it should have just been June Moon start to talk like her. But they had her embody look completely different. But then they used her body. I don't know. It just seemed like a weird choice to me.
Yeah.
Where it's like,
you're not wrong.
Why bother at all?
I also really didn't care for like I've mentioned it, I didn't care for the beginning part, where like they introduce everyone. And I feel like it's one way to introduce somebody, but it felt like you're watching commercials for characters that will appear in the film. And
like trailer pieces.
Yeah, like, and then like they go into the movie like in between those shots, but like you're never actually building an understanding of who these characters are, except for Will Smith, who was like, you got an emotional tie to this, you've got a actual backstory, and then these other characters are just kind of like, this is so and so, here's his powers.
But they were so fast, I couldn't read any of them.
Yeah.
Like, it was just like, blink, and I'm like, what did they even say? I don't even know. And it seems like a weird choice, too, because they introduce characters later without those. It's like, if you're gonna do those, you have to do them for everybody else. Like, Katana should have one, Slipknot should have one, if you're gonna do it that way. It's either go all in or not at all, because it felt really weird when they brought in the other characters that didn't have the, like, flash frame describing them, and it was just like,
so if instead of the flash frame and you were in charge of that scene or those scenes, would you instead like incorporate like them in the middle of doing a crime and then them getting caught or by the police or Batman? Would that be better than a freeze frame sort of like, and then just intermingle that in to when the character's brought up, not the first time of the like Amanda Waller's pitch of Force X, but like the second time kind of thing.
Yeah, I think that would be for me, that would be the way to go. You do Batman, like, you do a story where you pick a main character, you figure out who it is. Is it the army guy who's the main character, Captain Flag or whatever his name is, or is it
Rick Flag,
or is it who's the lady who's organizing the team? Is that
Amanda Waller?
You either pick one or the other, and they have to have an arc. They have to like go through some form of change, and you have to go on this journey with them. Then, while they're collecting the people, you have Batman imprisoning them or jailing them, even the Flag guy, because apparently he's a good guy and like a moral compass to the team. You can have him capturing a few or catching them in the act. And then you're introduced to the characters. And if you want to learn about their backstory, you intermingle that with their interactions with the characters throughout the films. Like the Marvel's been doing it with their Netflix series, where they don't necessarily give you the character's backstory in the first episode. You learn about it through the course of the show. And that would be the way to learn about these characters, because stopping the movie to go, okay, now there's this guy, and this is his backstory, and this is his powers, and this is how he got them, or whatever, and then go back to the film, it's really choppy. It takes you out. You can't really focus on it. I felt the most backstory drop information was stuff when they're talking to each other, like the villains talking to each other, like Will Smith urging on Diablo to use his powers and stuff like that. I didn't need to know about his home life. I knew that he regretted what he did, and I knew that he was hesitant to use his powers. Like, it was self-evident with the characters interacting. I didn't need to go back and re-witness his, like, him doing what he did.
Family dying,
his surprisingly like classic American dream life. That flashback was so out of place to me. It was just like him fully tattooed, and then it's just like white picket house, like housewife, wife, and two like tiny children.
I mean, he
I
was
like,
a gangster,
what?
so
Yeah.
I mean, he was a gangster, and he like owned a lot of territory. I mean, he cared, and he obviously cared for the quote unquote all American
Yeah.
dream, but
That's true.
at,
It just,
at the end of the day,
I guess it was just like the like ambiance they chose. I guess it makes
Yeah.
sense that they could have like normal, like really classic home life, but it just felt so weird and out of place where it's like very like white kitchen, sparkling, like all this stuff, and then it's just him in like very gangster clothes with a skull tattoo. It just looked really out of place to me.
I mean, how else do you
Yeah.
do it once you got your full body tattoo? You kind of committed.
yeah.
I felt like if you wanted to do like the emotional ties, like the flashback was clearly so you can see his emotional connection, but I think like having him like using his powers and then like maybe a zoom in on his face, the fire flying around him, and then maybe like the screams of his children while he's using the fire, or his like wife yelling like out there, not in here, like the echo in the background of the flame. So you kind of feel like every time he uses his power, he's like he feels that.
Remembering the horror.
Yeah, that would be like his name's Diablo, which is for the devil, which it's his power is his own personal hell. And I think like he it almost feels like his character is that tragic, made the deal with the devil, and you realized your power starts off great until you accidentally murder your family. So I felt like you could have channeled that in a much more creative, artistic way instead of just cut to flashback, cut back to story.
See, what even would have been better is like when he used it the 2 times. Was that before or after the bar scene? I think it was after.
The
No,
first
it was
time he
before,
did it
because they were.
before.
Yeah, so the first time you could have heard those like light murmurs and screams, and then he would tell his story at the bar, and then it would that would even make more sense.
Yeah.
You know, like
Yeah.
and then maybe change up some of the aesthetics for the flashback. Like I found that moment to be the best moment, like in regards to like character development for like all of the characters there. I hated the freaking comedy that was interspliced with these serious moments, like Katana crying into her sword. Like, this is supposed to be a beautiful and like somber moment. Like, she's crying into her sword, and like Rick Flagg's like, the man who killed her husband with that sword, and it's like, oh shit, like I got goosebumps. I'm like, oh, that's fucked up. Like, you're carrying around his soul.
Yeah.
and then it's like it hard cuts to Captain Boomerang saying, you know what they say about them crazies, and then Harley says, what?
Yeah.
You know, like
I
it
feel
ruins the moment.
Yeah, I feel like that's a direct result of Deadpool. Like, I feel like that was almost like a reshoot. Like, oh crap, Deadpool's really funny and it's doing so well. We gotta have jokes. We gotta put some jokes in here.
But it wasn't even like this movie wasn't that violent. They're just shooting like monster alien people that
Yeah,
are.
and they shatter. There's no blood. It's just like shattering and stuff like
Because
that.
they had to get it PG-13
Yeah.
so they could get all the money.
Yeah, that's true.
All audiences, all money.
I felt
Yeah.
like they should have went with the R rating with like an
Oh,
all
yeah.
villains team. I'm sorry, like you got these violent, dangerous people. You have like you either commit or you don't, and it like it was right on the cusp. They didn't, yeah. They definitely didn't. It's
Not even the tip.
Not even. Not even a little.
yeah, like I don't know, like also having like a military group with them just felt like diluting it.
Yeah.
There was a scene that I was really excited about when it was happening because at this point in the film I'd already kind of like lost interest and I was just kind of waiting for it to end. But then like Killer Croc's like, oh, I'll plant the bomb because it's in the water and I can do it or whatever or something like that, and he just dives in and swims off, and it was sweet because you see him swimming like a crocodile. It was really cool. But then like they just send more military guys in and he just kind of fights some monsters underwater while a different guy plants a bomb, and I felt like you didn't need the military guys. Just get the Killer Croc to do this because it would have been a great moment for him, and you just don't need to have like a guy under there holding a bomb till it explodes while they.
Yeah.
So.
It just, yeah, it was things like, yeah, stuff like that where they had an opportunity and they just didn't do anything with it. It fell flat.
Yeah. It's very, it's a very middling, like, half-assed. And I honestly, I feel like it was because of, I want to see the director's cut to see how that turns out, but I probably won't get it until it's, like, in the dollar bin or on Netflix.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
overall, that's I think a consensus amongst us three is that it's just middling. Like it had the bare bones structure or foundation to be good, but it had too much interference and not enough time to develop on its
Yeah.
own.
Yeah. A lot of
Any final
potential.
thoughts?
It had a lot of potential and it just fell flat on its face.
All right. Well, thank you so much for joining me, you guys.
Thank you for having us.
Tara and James. You're very welcome. These guys are from the Thirsty Kraken Tavern.
Yay.
Kraken Tavern. They are awesome peeps. They do game reviews and all kinds of other stuff. We'll have an annotation and a link in the description below. Thank you guys for joining us on Making the Rounds, and see you in the next episode.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.